Imagine a prison without walls. A prison where the inmates don't realize they are incarcerated because the bars are made of convenience, efficiency, and law. You wake up in a house financed by a bank using a specific corporate structure. You drive a car fueled by a specific supply chain. You buy food from a consolidated marketplace. You take medicine approved by a regulatory body funded by the very companies it regulates. You think these are independent systems. You think this is the free market. You are wrong. Every single one of these systems, banking, energy, retail, medicine, is built on a blueprint drawn by one man, 150 years ago. His name was John D. Rockefeller. Most people know him as the rich oil guy, the man who built Standard Oil, but that is a surface-level understanding. Rockefeller didn't just build a company, he built an operating system for capitalism. He invented the structures of control that govern your life today in 2025. The vertical integration of Amazon, that's Rockefeller. The regulatory capture of Pfizer, that's Rockefeller. The holding company structure of JP Morgan Chase, that's Rockefeller. He created the template for the modern monopoly, a system so perfect, so self-perpetuating, that even when the government broke his company into 34 pieces in 1911, he only got richer. The system didn't die. It evolved, it metastasized, and today you cannot escape it. I am going to show you exactly how he did it. Not the biography you learned in school, but the mechanics of the machine. We will deconstruct the playbook of the greatest architect of control in human history. And once you see the blueprint, you will never look at a corporate logo the same way again. To understand the solution, you must understand the problem he faced. The year is 1859, Titusville, Pennsylvania. Oil is discovered. It was the Black Gold Rush. Thousands of prospectors flooded the hills, drilling holes in the ground, hoping to strike it rich. It was pure, unadulterated capitalism. It was chaotic. It was violent. Prices fluctuated wildly. Fortunes were made in a week and lost in an hour. Most people saw this chaos and saw opportunity. John D. Rockefeller, a 20-year-old bookkeeper in Cleveland with the soul of an accountant and the conviction of a zealot, saw something else. He saw waste. Rockefeller despised chaos. He believed in order. He believed that competition, the sacred cow of capitalism, was actually a sin. It duplicated effort. It destroyed capital. It led to instability. He didn't want to play the game better than everyone else. He wanted to change the rules so that he was the only one playing. He ignored the drilling. Drilling was gambling. He looked at the choke point, refining. Crude oil is useless until it is turned into kerosene for lamps. If you control the refinery, you control the oil. In 1863, he bought his first refinery. By 1870, he founded Standard Oil. He controlled 4% of the U.S. market. 10 years later, he controlled 90%. How does a man go from 4% to 90% in a decade? He didn't do it by making a better product, though he did. He didn't do it by being nicer. He did it by inventing a new way of war. The first pillar of the Rockefeller system is vertical integration. In the 1860s, a business usually did one thing. You were a driller, or a refiner, or a barrel maker, or a railroad. Rockefeller looked at this and saw inefficiency. Why pay the barrel maker a profit? Why pay the railroad a profit? So, he bought them, all of them. He bought the forests to cut the wood. He bought the factories to make the barrels. He bought the wagons to move the oil. He bought the warehouses to store it. Eventually, he built his own pipelines to bypass the railroads entirely. Every step of the process, from the ground to the customer, happened inside the walls of Standard Oil. This gave him a mathematical advantage that was impossible to beat. His competitors paid $2.50 to make a barrel of oil. Rockefeller made it for $0.96. He could sell his kerosene at a price that was lower than his competitors' cost of production. He didn't just beat them, he starved them. This wasn't competition, it was asphyxiation. But efficiency wasn't enough. He needed total control. He needed to eliminate the other refineries. And to do that, he launched a campaign that historians call the Cleveland Massacre. If vertical integration is controlling the ladder, horizontal consolidation is burning down everyone else's ladder. In 1872, Rockefeller made an offer to every refinery owner in Cleveland. The offer was simple. Sell your refinery to me in exchange for Standard Oil stock. You will get a fair price, and you will become rich. It was a generous offer, but there was a second part to the offer. If you refuse, I will crush you. Most sold. They saw the math. A few refused. They believed in independence. Rockefeller responded by lowering the price of kerosene in Cleveland to pennies. He took a loss on every gallon. He could afford it. He had deep pockets. His competitors did not. Within months, the holdouts were bankrupt. Rockefeller bought their assets at auction for scrap value. By the end of the massacre, he controlled 25 of the 26 refineries in Cleveland. He owned the market. This is the pattern. Offer partnership. If refused, deploy predatory pricing. Destroy the target. Acquire the assets. Does this sound familiar? It should. It is exactly how Amazon operates today. Amazon notices a popular product on its platform. It makes an Amazon Basics version. It undercuts the price. The original seller dies. Amazon owns the market. It is the Rockefeller algorithm, digitized and accelerated. But Rockefeller had a problem. The laws of the United States were not designed for a company this big. Standard Oil was an Ohio company. Legally, it couldn't own companies in other states. He was expanding faster than the law allowed. So in 1882, he didn't just break the law, he reinvented it. He created a legal structure that would change the world forever. The trust. In 1882, Rockefeller and his legal team, led by the brilliant Samuel Dodd, sat in a room and invented the future of corporate law. They faced a wall. State laws prevented one company from owning stock in another company across state lines. It was a safeguard designed to prevent exactly what Rockefeller was trying to do. So, they decided to bypass the concept of a company altogether. They created the Standard Oil Trust. It was a masterstroke of legal engineering. Shareholders of all the various refineries across the country handed their voting shares to a board of 9 trustees, led by Rockefeller. In exchange, they received trust certificates, pieces of paper that entitled them to profits but gave them zero control. The 9 men at 26 Broadway in New York City now controlled everything. They didn't technically own the companies in other states. They just held in trust the power to direct them. This was the birth of the holding company. It was the first time in history a centralized body could command an empire that spanned a continent, bypassing local laws, taxes, and oversight. It was so effective that it spawned imitators immediately: the Sugar Trust, the Tobacco Trust, the Steel Trust. Rockefeller didn't just monopolize oil, he monopolized the structure of business power. By 1904, the machine was perfect. Standard Oil controlled 91% of oil production and 85% of final sales in the United States. Rockefeller was no longer just a businessman. He was an economic sovereign. His net worth hit $900 million. In today's inflation-adjusted terms, peering through the lens of economic power relative to GDP, he was worth $400 billion. He was richer than Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates combined. But visibility is dangerous. The public hated him. They called him a robber baron. They saw the crushing of small businesses, the bribery of politicians, the secret railroad rebates. Journalist Ida Tarbell published The History of the Standard Oil Company, a devastating exposé that laid bare the predator's playbook. The pressure became impossible to ignore. The U.S. government had to act. In 1911, the Supreme Court dropped the hammer. They ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. The order was given: break it up. The monolith was shattered into 34 separate companies. Standard Oil of New Jersey became Exxon. Standard Oil of New York became Mobil. Standard Oil of California became Chevron. Standard Oil of Indiana became Amoco. The public cheered. The dragon was slain. The system worked, or so they thought, because they missed the fine print. When the government broke up the trust, they distributed the shares of the new 34 companies pro rata to the existing shareholders. Rockefeller owned 25% of Standard Oil. So the next morning, he owned 25% of Exxon, 25% of Mobil, 25% of Chevron, and 25% of every other shard of the empire. He didn't lose control. He just diversified it. And then something miraculous happened. Freed from the lethargy of the monopoly, the 34 companies began to compete. They innovated. They expanded. The automobile age arrived, and demand for gasoline exploded. The value of the separate pieces grew faster than the whole ever could. This is the great irony of 1911. The government tried to destroy Rockefeller's wealth. Instead, they multiplied it. Before the breakup, Standard Oil traded at roughly $600 a share. This taught the elite a lesson they never forgot. Regulation doesn't kill the system, it refines it. It taught them that if you structure your wealth correctly, even the US Supreme Court cannot touch you. You just change the logo. You change the name. But the ownership remains. Look at the oil industry today. Exxon merged with Mobil, Chevron bought Texaco, BP bought Amoco. The 34 pieces have slowly, quietly, coalesced back into 3 or 4 giants. The Standard Oil snake didn't die. It just shed its skin and grew new heads. Do you want to see the trust today? Look at Google. In 2015, Google restructured. It created a parent company called Alphabet. Alphabet is a holding company. It produces nothing. It owns Google. It owns YouTube. It owns Waymo. It owns DeepMind. It isolates liability. It optimizes taxes. It centralizes control while simulating separation. It is the Standard Oil Trust, digitized for the 21st century. Rockefeller's legacy isn't just oil, it is the corporate structure itself. But he wasn't done. He knew that money wasn't enough. To maintain control for centuries, you need more than capital. You need to control the rules themselves, you need to capture the regulators, and you need to control the public perception. This leads us to his most dangerous invention, the foundation. By 1910, John D. Rockefeller was the most hated man in America. He was depicted in cartoons as a monster strangling the globe. He received death threats daily. The government was tearing his company apart. He realized that to maintain power, money wasn't enough. He needed something money couldn't buy, legitimacy. He needed to change the narrative from the ruthless monopolist to the benevolent benefactor. And so, just like he invented the trust to control corporations, he invented the foundation to control society. In 1913, 2 years after the Supreme Court broke up Standard Oil, he launched the Rockefeller Foundation with an initial gift of $100 million. History books call this charity. A more cynical and perhaps accurate analysis calls it reputation laundering and tax evasion. At the time, the US government was introducing the estate tax. By moving his fortune into a charitable trust, Rockefeller ensured that the government couldn't touch the principal. His family would lose ownership of the money, but they would retain control over how it was spent. And spending money is a form of power often greater than owning it. But Rockefeller didn't just build libraries. He wanted to shape the future. His primary target was medicine. In the early 20th century, medicine was chaotic. There were homeopaths, naturopaths, herbalists, and osteopaths. Most of these treatments were natural. They couldn't be patented. They couldn't be mass-produced. And crucially, they didn't use petrochemicals. Standard Oil produced massive amounts of chemical byproducts. Rockefeller saw a synergy. If medicine could be shifted away from plants and toward chemistry, a new market would open up. So the foundation commissioned the Flexner Report of 1910. It was a comprehensive audit of American medical schools. The conclusion? Any school that taught natural medicine, homeopathy, or holistic care was deemed unscientific and forced to close. The foundation then poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the schools that agreed to teach the new curriculum: allopathic medicine, surgery, radiation, synthetic drugs. It worked. Within a generation, medicine became synonymous with pharmaceuticals. Rockefeller funded the research. The research validated the drugs. The drugs were manufactured by companies spun out of the chemical industry. It was the ultimate vertical integration. He didn't just sell the oil, he sold the science that made the oil essential for human health. Whether you believe this was for the betterment of humanity or for profit is up to you. But the result is undeniable. He engineered the modern healthcare system. Does this playbook sound familiar? Look at Bill Gates. In the 1990s, Gates was the villain. The DOJ sued Microsoft for being a monopoly. He was the ruthless tech tyrant. Today, he is the kindly grandfather of global health. He followed the Rockefeller script to the letter. He created the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He transferred his wealth into it, shielding it from taxes. And he uses that money to shape global policy. The Gates Foundation funds the World Health Organization, WHO. It funds agricultural research. It funds vaccine development. Just like Rockefeller, Gates isn't just giving money away. He is directing the flow of scientific consensus. He is purchasing a seat at the table of sovereign nations. When a pandemic hits, governments don't just call the CDC, they call Bill Gates. That is power that no election can grant, and no term limit can end. This is the genius of the foundation structure. John D. Rockefeller died in 1937. But his influence didn't die, it grew. His son and his grandsons, specifically David Rockefeller, used the family's charitable influence to shape the 20th century. David Rockefeller founded the Trilateral Commission. He was the chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, now J.P. Morgan Chase. He admitted in his own memoirs that he was part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States to create a one-world political and economic structure. The foundation allowed the family to operate above the level of governments. While presidents came and went every 4 or 8 years, the Rockefeller agenda, globalization, standardization, consolidation, marched on for a century. So we have the corporate structure, the trust. We have the social structure, the foundation. But there is one final layer to the prison, the inescapable reality of your daily life. The greatest trick the system ever pulled was convincing you that you have a choice. Walk into a supermarket. You see 40,000 different products. You see hundreds of brands. It looks like a vibrant, competitive ecosystem. But if you trace the ownership back, you realize that 10 companies own almost everything you eat. If you trace the banks, you realize 4 companies control the money supply. If you trace the media, you realize 6 companies control the news. This is the Rockefeller legacy. It is a system designed to look like a forest, but it is actually a single tree with many branches. And no matter which branch you pick, the fruit feeds the same root. Let us trace the flow of your money through a single day in 2025. You wake up and check your phone. Social media. You can use Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp. They feel different. One is for photos, one is for text, one is for messaging. But they are all meta. You aren't choosing a platform. You are choosing which room of Mark Zuckerberg's house you want to stand in. This is horizontal consolidation, buying the competitors to simulate variety while maintaining control. You drive to work. You need gas. Energy. You can stop at Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, or Amoco. Exxon and Mobil merged. Chevron bought Texaco. BP bought Amoco. These aren't competitors fighting a price war. They are members of an oligopoly descended directly from Standard Oil. They don't compete on price. They coordinate on price. You are paying a Rockefeller tax every time you fill your tank. You get to work and open your laptop. You need to search for something. Google. Google has a 92% market share in search. In 1904, Standard Oil had 91% of the oil market. Google is more dominant today than Rockefeller was at his peak. But regulators struggle to touch Google. Why? Because Rockefeller charged money for oil. Google charges nothing for search. You pay with data. Rockefeller would have loved this business model, a monopoly so absolute that the users don't even realize they are the product being sold. You need to buy something for your home. Amazon. Amazon uses Rockefeller's favorite weapon, predatory pricing. They use the profits from their cloud business, AWS, to subsidize their retail business. They can lose money on shipping just to drive FedEx or UPS or small retailers out of business. Once the competition is dead, they raise the fees. It is the Cleveland massacre happening in slow motion, digital and algorithmic. What does it cost to live in this system? Let's run the numbers. The average American household spends $4,000 a year on energy, oil oligopoly. $5,000 a year on healthcare, pharma oligopoly. $3,000 a year on technology and internet, tech oligopoly. $4,000 a year on food processed by the big ag oligopoly. That is $16,000 a year flowing directly from your labor to the heirs of the Rockefeller system. This is the extraction machine. It is efficient, it is reliable, and it is inescapable. You could try to opt out. You could refuse to buy gas, but you can't get to work. You could refuse to use Amazon, but you pay 30% more elsewhere. You could refuse to use Google, but you become invisible to the world. You could refuse pharmaceutical medicine, but the insurance system won't cover alternatives. This is Rockefeller's ultimate achievement. He didn't just build a fortune, he built a reality. A reality where the only viable path is the one he paved. He understood something profound about human nature. People will trade freedom for convenience. Standard Oil brought the price of kerosene down from 58 cents to 8 cents. He made life easier. He made life brighter. But the price of that cheap light was control. We accepted the bargain. We accepted cheap shipping, free search, and instant connection. And in exchange, we handed over the keys to the economy to a handful of men in boardrooms. So, where does that leave us? If you can't escape the system and you can't destroy the system, what do? Do you just accept your status as a battery powering the machine, or is there a third option? Here is the uncomfortable truth that most critics of capitalism refuse to admit. The system isn't evil. It is efficient. Rockefeller wasn't a cartoon villain who hated the poor. He was a man obsessed with optimizing the world. Standard Oil did lower the price of light for millions of people. Amazon does deliver products faster than anyone else. Google does organize the world's information. The machine works. It delivers cheap goods, fast services, and technological miracles. But the price we pay is the concentration of power. We traded a messy, vibrant, competitive democracy for a sleek, efficient, corporate oligarchy. We traded resilience for convenience. So, living in 2025, inside the prison Rockefeller built, what are your options? You have 3 paths. Path 1. Submission. You accept the bargain. You use Prime, you use Google, you buy the gas, you enjoy the convenience, and you accept that your wealth is slowly being siphoned upward. This is the default path. 99% of people live here. Path 2. Resistance. You fight the system, you buy local, you use Linux, you grow your own food. You support antitrust politicians. This is the noble path. But it is exhausting, it is expensive. And historically, it rarely wins. The system is designed to absorb resistance. When you break up Standard Oil, it just reforms as Exxon. Path 3. Positioning. This is the pragmatic path. If you cannot destroy the machine, own a piece of it. Rockefeller didn't want you to be a customer. He wanted you to be dependent. The only way to reclaim your power is to become an owner. Buy the stock of the monopolies. Buy the index funds that hold them. If Amazon is going to extract wealth from the economy, make sure some of that wealth flows back to you in dividends and equity. Align yourself with the flow of capital rather than standing in front of it. John D. Rockefeller died in 1937 at the age of 97. His body is buried in Cleveland, but his spirit is alive in every boardroom in Manhattan, Silicon Valley, and Washington, D.C. He proved that competition is temporary, but control is forever. He proved that if you write the rules of the game, you never have to lose. The world you see around you, the brands, the banks, the laws, is his monument. You cannot escape it. But you can understand it. And in a world designed to keep you blind, seeing the bars of the cage is the first step toward freedom. This is economy money. If this video changed how you see the logos on your screen, subscribe. Because the story of power didn't end in 1911. It is being written right now, and you are a character in the script. We'll see you in the next one.